This section is percent of a number, and we'll look at that word of in mathematical terms. Typically, it means multiplication. So recall, the word of, as I said, means multiplication. So first, we're going to convert, there's two steps. First, we're going to convert the percent to a decimal, which we saw last lesson. And step 2, we're going to multiply. And that's it. That's all it is. It seems so simple. Okay, so for the examples, determine each value. So first, we're going to convert this percent to a decimal by, do you remember how we do that? We divide by 100. So I take the value of 25, I move the decimal place 2, I get 0.25. Of means multiply, and then 150 stays the same. It's not a percent or a decimal. I don't need to change anything. So I end up getting 0.25 multiplied by 150, and it's 37.5. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Next one, 140%. Remember, we have greater than 100%, so my decimal place is at the end. I'm going to move it 2 places, which means I have a 1 in front of my 0.4 or 0.40. Remember last lesson, we can put the 0 there, or we don't have to. So 1.4 of means multiply, 20. So I take 1.4 and I multiply by 20, and I end up with 28. Notice the first one, 25% of 150, 25% is less than 100%, so I'm actually going to be reducing the value of 150. This one, 140% is greater than 100%, so I'm actually going to be increasing the value of 20. So I'm getting bigger. A few more examples here. Okay, 10% of 45, so again, just divide by 100. I should have put that the last time. Put the decimal place, so I get 0.105. Remember, it's very important to have all the digits that are shown. Of means multiply, and 45. So I take 0.105 multiplied by 45, and I end up with 4.725. Don't round these ones because you don't need to, and it's nice to be very accurate. 5% of 300. Divide that 5% by 100 to convert it to a decimal. 1, 2. Oh, remember, if there's a space, we have to add a 0. So I end up with 0.05 of 300. So quite a small percent this time. 0.05 times 300, and I end up with 15. Okay, last example here. 0.5%, so I'm going to, again, divide by 100. 1, 2, I'm going to have to add a 0. This one's even smaller than 5%. Notice that this is going to be 0.005. And we've seen some examples too with, like, don't write this one down, but 50%, if I divide by 100, I end up with 0.5. Notice how these values are all different. 50% is 0.5, 5% ended up being 0.05, and 0.5% ended up being 0.005. So place value is really, really important in these questions. And now I need to multiply this 0.005 by 135. So I take my value, 0.005. Be very careful when you're putting a calculator because you want to make sure you have the correct number of zeros to push that 5 into the proper place value. So I take that, I multiply it by 135, and I end up with 0.675. So you can see that that value of 135 gets reduced quite a lot to 0.675. It gets like slashed. Because my percent is so small. So multiplying by small percents make the value very small. Multiplying by values, percents that aren't quite so small, don't cut the value down as much. Okay, let's look at some problems involving some money. So the first example I have here is about a computer. So the original price of a computer, and I checked this, in 1995 was $2,130. So this was not a super high-end computer, but fairly good. This included, actually that's a lot of money, especially in 1995. This included 8 megabytes, not gigabytes, 8 megabytes of RAM, and a 730 megabyte hard drive. Dave's Discount PCs is having a sale on vintage PC equipment, which is basically what this is. And he's selling this computer for 45% off. That will tell you a key piece of information we're going to have to subtract. So the value, when we take the 45%, off means subtract. Okay, so there's just some math words that we have to kind of keep in mind. And then calculate the new price. So if you can think about 730 megabyte hard drive and how big games are or applications are nowadays, that would not even hold a single game. Most games, it wouldn't even hold a portion of a game or applications. Most applications are gigabytes big, right? So first question is, how much is the price reduced by? So what was the original price? Okay, so we take the original price and we multiply by the percent. So what I do is I take the original price of $21.30. Okay, you can put the decimals or not. I guess, again, those decimals aren't really going to change the value. And I multiply by the percent, which is 45%. But we have to take that 45% and we have to convert it to a decimal, right? So I have to take 45 and I'm going to divide that by 100, move the decimal place 2. So I get multiplied by 0.45. And this is the amount of money I'm going to have to subtract. But first of all, I'm just being asked how much the price is reduced by. So I multiply these two values together. I get the original price of $2,130, and I multiply that by my 45%, which is 0.45. And I end up with a reduction of $958, and we'll look at this. 958, whoops. And 0.5. But because I'm dealing with money, I will put the 0 after the 5 because we know that cents, when we're looking at like the number of dollars and cents, the cents usually have 2 decimal places. So we would like to have 50 to show that it's 50 cents. So this is the reduction of price. And we're going to subtract this for part B. What is the new cost of this powerful PC as it would have been back in 1995? And of course, I had a PC that was very similar to this. So the actual price, we take the original price, which was $21.30, and we're going to subtract off $958.50. $21.30 minus $958.50. Which leaves us with $11.71. And again, 0.5, but I'm going to add the 0 because this is money. You wouldn't have to add the 0 most of the time. But again, because this is dollars and cents, it's a good practice to include the value. So there we have an example of a very old, antiquated PC. But at the time, you can see how much RAM and how much hard drive space. It's just very interesting. Okay. Last example here. No, I think this is the last example. So real estate. So real estate, and I checked these values up too. Real estate agent in Vancouver. This is in BC. I don't live in Vancouver, but I know the house prices can be quite expensive there. A real estate agent can make up to 7%. Okay, so we know we're gonna have to probably convert that to a decimal on the first $100,000 of a home. And so we know we're probably going to be adding, okay? And we see the word of, so we know we're going to be multiplying. And 2.5%, so we know we're going to have to change that one probably to a decimal as well, on the remaining value. If a house sells for $1.6 million, how much does the realtor make on the sale? So this would be a commission type of question, right? So the first thing we're going to have to do is calculate how much they make on the first 100,000. So on the first 100,000, we take, of course, 100,000. And we're going to multiply by the percent, dividing by 100. So that's 0.07. And we multiply that by 0.07 because that's the percent they make on the first 100,000. They don't make the 2.5%, they make that on the remaining. So I multiply these two values together to get the first amount. 100,000 multiplied by 0.07, and they make $7,000. which is quite a lot of money, on the first 100,000. Next, calculate how much they make on the remaining amount. Well, first of all, we need to know how much is remaining. So it was 1.6 million. So if you want to put that in a calculator, $1.6 million. And we are going to subtract off 100,000 because they've already made their 7% on the first 100,000. Okay, so what's remaining is actually 1.5 million or 1,500,000. So we have $1,500,000 left on the house, and they're going to make 2.5% on that remaining value, and 2.5%, of course, we have to divide by 100. So we go 1, 2, put the decimal place there, add a 0. So I get 0.025. They're going to make a lot less, but they're still going to make a lot of money. So $1,500,000 times 0.025, and that ends up being, that's a lot of money, $37,500. So finally, the total commission earned, we're going to add both. So I have $7,000 from the first $100,000 that he made 7% commission on. And now I have $37,500, which is how much he made on the second portion. So I have 7,000, well, I have that right there, 37,500. I'm going to add on 7,000 to get 44,500. And that's how much commission, how much money a realtor could make on a $1.6 million home. Now that is a ton of money, that's a lot of money, but keep in mind that it might take the realtor a long time to sell the home too. The houses can be on the market for like 100 days, 200 days, a year. So it can take a lot of time to make that amount of money. Hopefully that helps. Go back and review the lesson and then let me know if you have any questions.